Hello and welcome back to Down the Slope. We're just kind of hitting you with these random episodes as we go, but as you can see, we've got a substitute in. He got pretty well battered last week, but Ewan, what's happening, mate? You've joined us.
Mate, I'm delighted to be here. I don't think last week's slander. I think the slander was preempting things that are to come, which I'm sure will come in sort of the first half of the season as I was sharing different plans with you there before we started recording. I'd just like to make it clear that last Friday, this is becoming a weekly occurrence now. It's a Friday night show. I was away for work. Do you know that? Like I was on a flight as you were recording. Like so, do you know there wasn't. It was also very well known in advance. But you know, I'll take it on the chin. As you can see, I have put a wee comment on there saying I'm actually here. I did enjoy one of the YouTube comments. I think it was Jay and Sandy saying he was going to start like a "Where's Wally" series, being like "Where's Ewan?" But no, don't worry, we've not had any other messy divorces like we have in the past. I wasn't going to, appear on a signing unveiling video for Long Bangers or the Ramble, or I don't know if Strong Ops are still going. Like, I'm firmly still DTS at heart. And I'm very excited to talk Hibs, mate. I'm buzzing.
A Del Ferrier joke to make there, but I'm just going to leave it. But Craig, in response to you and Womp came to mind there when he was chatting. Is that what you were feeling as well?
There was a lot of excuses in there. That felt a wee bit excusey to me. I'm panicking.
Look, all I'm saying is I had a valid reason. Liam has boldly proclaimed that he says he thinks we should record on a Friday during the off season. Where is he? Do you know what I mean? We even gave him an alternate of recording on Monday, but that was unacceptable. Look, I just had one day that I couldn't record, and you boys opted to go with it. That's perfectly fine. But
all right, well, lads, now that we've kind of aired all the handbags out on YouTube for all to see, we've got a few fun talking points. But before we get into the fun talking points, I think it's always fair to get the less nice things out the way, I suppose. Up first, Craig, say one or two.
One.
Number one, Dylan Vente. Boom, guys, are coming back with this. We're going to rock with this for the season, by the way. If you guys like it, please let us know. But Dylan Vente has left the club. He's went to Heerenveen, I believe. Permanent offer. If the newspapers, etc., are to be believed, it's in the region between 900,000 to 1.1 million. Ewan, come to you first. He was great when he first came in, but probably the right decision for player and club.
Aye, 100%. It was funny, just before we started, Lauren sort of asked me, what are you guys going to talk about? And I was running her through like the ins and outs this week, and she mentioned Vente sort of being like, oh, like what, like is that a good thing or a bad thing? And I think it's a good thing to always turn profit on players. I think perhaps there'll be some element of disappointment with the fee, but also you've got a player that doesn't want to be here. And I don't know, if I'm being totally honest, a player that probably got, in my opinion, far too much credit because of a very good start, but a distinctly shite 10 months that followed it, to be honest with you. Like, I know, like, oh, he didn't play here, he didn't play there, he played out of position, whatever. I don't know, mate. Like, he didn't do enough. Do you know, like, that's just, he literally did live off that, of his first 5 shots, didn't he?
It was underwhelming, definitely, for a player who cost 700 grand.
Aye, like, it just, I don't know, like, maybe I'm wrong, but you wouldn't say that a winger shouldn't score goals because they play wide. You know, maybe you were operating as like a number 10 or whatever, but like, how often have we seen, like Josh Campbell score goals from that deeper position, arriving at the right time? And he is still a striker that naturally should have that knack to score goals. And even, like last pre-season, like, missed a couple of sitters in the League Cup. That chance he missed at St Mirren on opening day as well. Like, I think it's the best move for everyone involved that he's went back to Holland, and at least we've turned some profit. Like I say, maybe not as much as what maybe you've hoped when a player's scoring a lot of goals. I think as well, you maybe over exaggerate how many goals he has scored in Holland last season. What I would say is that if Hibs were linked with a striker that scored 13 goals in the Scottish Premiership last season, would we be willing to pay more than £1 million for that player? Do you know what I mean? Like, it's not like he's went and scored 30 goals in the Eredivisie last year. It was like, was it 13 or something? So I think it's pretty good all round.
I think most of what you said there is fair, but I think if Hibs were signing a player that scored 13 goals in the Eredivisie, I think that would be pretty chuffed with ourselves, to be fair.
No, I said in the Scottish Premiership. I said if someone had scored 13 goals in our league and the price. If Ross County turned around to us and said you need to pay £1 million for Ronan Hale, and I'm being like,
so I'm
beyond
sorry if
we
I'm
get
being
any-
stupid here, but has Vente not just scored 13 goals in the Eredivisie?
I don't think there's. I'm genuinely not taking the piss here. I don't think there's beyond your. I think in Dutch football you've got Ajax, Feyenoord, PSV, and that, and then it's a massive
He's
fall
out
off.
now.
I'm being serious. If Hibs played fucking go ahead Eagles, would pump them. On it, like I don't. The team that I think we would beat the team that he played for last year.
That's a bold statement. I think
Even like look at like Rangers have done well against their best teams in Europe over the last couple of years. I don't think Dutch football's great, to be honest with you.
Dundee United are a good example of that. Craig, they've done very well in Europe against
they've done brilliantly.
the Dutch team.
They did beat them 1-0, to be fair.
True. Yeah.
I'm just saying that.
I
think this Hibs team's better than that Dundee United team.
I think you've been a wee bit harsh on Vente, to be honest. I think there's maybe a wee bit more context there than you suggested. But ultimately, the bottom line is it's the best thing for both him and the club, because it was the writing was on the wall for ages. So it's definitely the right move. And the fact that you're making a wee bit of a profit off him, I think maybe the fee in the end was probably a wee bit disappointing because it had been banded about that it was going to be a bit more than that. I think maybe just that there was a wee bit of a letdown, that the fee wasn't quite as much as maybe the 1.5-2 million that was going about. But ultimately, it's a player that's not worked for Hibs, and we've still made a bit of a profit on him. So
They don't have a year left.
it's not the end of the world.
Is that right?
Yeah, just a year. So it's not a disaster.
Nah.
And I think it's the right thing. So
I think it's a
move
good
on.
news story overall, Harry.
Yeah, I've not really got anything much to add. I think we touched it briefly last week. As I say, I think it's a bit rough when you join a club and then team immediately changes manager and stuff. So he's one of those players I don't wish him any ill will. I don't think he'd done anything bad against Hibs that some people have kind of soiled themselves or said nasty things in the press about the club, and I don't think he's done that. So fair play to him. I think it's a good move for him and hopefully have a good career for himself. And up next, not as many people have many positive things to say about his time at Hibs, but Jair Tavares, I don't think it's been announced on club channels quite yet, but according to the evening news that ran it?
I think it was some journalists
I've only
in
seen it.
Portugal or something.
I've only seen it coming
Okay.
from like some Portuguese source. So I mean, forgive me, I'm not up to date with what's a genuine reporter in Portugal or not.
True.
But if Tavares his contracts, I think that's I would say it's more of a positive for us than I'm hanging around for a year. There must be. The only thing that I find a little bit odd by it is if he has suitors, because to release him from a contract, you would imagine there's been a payoff, right? Because he'll be entitled to something.
Well, apparently it was mutual consent, so I don't know.
Well, I think
it's just a rip it up type thing.
Well, I think mutual consent would suggest there's been some element of payoff, because otherwise, I mean, it wouldn't be in his interest, I don't think, to take nothing. I don't know. If there's then suitors that he has, I can't imagine Hibs would have wanted a fee for it. Do you know what I mean? It's weird, and the fact it's not official yet has got me sort of questioning it a little bit. Like, I feel like if Tavares had a club that were ready to come and bring him in,
pay a fee from it.
but I don't. That's what I'm saying. I don't think we'd ask for a fee, because if we're terminating his contract via mutual consent, I think we would settle something, and then
he's maybe had offers back home or anywhere, to be fair, and then just come to Hibs and gone, look, I'm wanting to go to this place. Can we work something out to terminate the contract, and then so I can then sign for them while the offer's there?
He's 20% of my wages that's left or something. Otherwise, I'm going to sit on my arse. And
that's definitely, if it happens, if it's the reports and the rumours are to be believed, it's definitely a good thing for Hibs to get him off the wage bill, because by all accounts he was on a pretty decent chunk of money for somebody that ultimately, if again, I don't want to bash a guy, but he offered very, very, very little during his time at Hibs. He had that one wee purple patch of, like, what was it, maybe 5 to 10 games. So it's definitely a good thing. Sorry it didn't work out. See you later. You're definitely not one of the best players in Scottish football.
Am I not right in saying that going into the Aberdeen semi-final where we got beat, were we not kind of putting our hopes on Tavares at that point?
He actually played well that game.
That's what I was going to say. I'd imagine that's where that image is from as well. That looks like it might be a Hampden background there. Like he was on form at that point, yeah. And like Craig said, he'd done pretty well as well. But I mean, I think you'd be struggling to make a full sort of YouTube 1 minute highlight reel for him. But you know, if you could just sort of show that goal at Dundee over and over, and maybe his emphatic finish against Ross County, you know, if you could just put them on a loop for 30-40 seconds, he'd look like the second coming of Ronaldo like that. The goal at Dundee at Dens was great.
He barely kicked the ball for Motherwell as well. So that kind of says it all, really.
And then amongst their 35 players last year, that 34 of them were injured and they still couldn't get on.
Yeah.
And final player departing. I don't really have anything to add. This one makes me a bit sad. I'm not devastated. Sorry, I couldn't find a better picture. But Nathan Mariah Welsh, that's a picture of him signing with the famous pen, but he's actually signed for Mansfield today, has left the club. It's a player that feels like a kind of right player, wrong time. Like if he came in when our midfield wasn't doing as well as they were, then he probably would have featured more. And I think he's definitely got a use. He's the type of player that is a bit difficult to squeeze in at times, but I think there's definitely a player in there. But going to Mansfield, that probably says that he's not quite where our goals are.
No, and I think I don't quite agree with you in the sense that right player, wrong time, because it's not like we were flying in his first 6 months, or really for the best part of his first year at the club. It's disappointing because he seemed like he had potential, and he seemed like. But I think
because the reason I say that though is I think that his appearances were really useful in our really good run, but Triantis and Levitt were like he wasn't getting it over any of those two.
So that's what I was doing. So ultimately, and he probably stood out a little bit more the season before last when he first joined because of the poor play around him as well. Do you know, I find myself. I know that sort of all you guys have said you're quite gutted about it.
I'm disappointed.
I think if there was a midfielder to leave this summer, especially if Triantis does rejoin, then I think Mariah Welsh is the one that I'd be least fussed over. I think he's. See, if he hung around for another year, I think by the time he leaves at that point, he's just another Jake Doyle Hayes where you're like, oh, he's still here. Oh, he was good for a little bit. And do you know what I mean? Just that sort of, aye. And if we've got a fee for him, great.
No, I take your point. I'm probably a wee bit more, not emotional or anything like that, but I'm probably a wee bit more gutted about it because I really liked him. I thought he seemed a really, really good character. Always gave 100%, always smashing into tackles, and I think ultimately, well, as a Hibs fan, if you do these types of things, you try hard, you smash into tackles, and you give your all, then that's half the work done for you, really. And he was part of, like you said earlier, part of one of our best weeks of football in our recent history, and he played a big part in that week, actually, a really big part. So a bit gutted, but I think, like you say, if I was to choose a midfielder that was going to go, it would probably be him, because I think it benefits him going away, getting games. He's still young, 23, so he needs to get out and play regularly, and I think he absolutely should be doing that at Mansfield, because that's definitely a level that he's more than good enough for.
Yeah, I think, Harry, with Mariah Welsh, and maybe even Vente to an extent, if we want to build on what we done last season and try and actually sustain ourselves as that sort of consistent top 4 or 5 club and sort of competing for trophies and stuff, I think over the next couple of years there is going to be most summers a sense of, oh, that's kind of disappointing that he's going, as opposed to, oh well, thank fuck that bunch of 6 idiots are away, such as McCurdy, Amos, etc. Do you know what I mean? Like, because if the squad's going to keep evolving, like, there is going to be players that you kind of have good memories of and good feeling towards leaving the football club, and that's healthy, and that's what stops you from getting to a point where you've got 15 players out of contract in one summer, or becoming an agent squad or anything like that. So I think it wouldn't surprise me if maybe even there's a couple more this summer as well. Like, I know that's not what we're here to really talk about, but maybe like Ekpiteta, who some people think, oh, do you know he was starting to come onto a game like before he got injured? Maybe he moves on, or a Lewis Miller.
Don't break my heart.
Do you know what I mean? Though that I think, and again we'll come on to the players that we've signed, but I think there's enough evidence to show that we're attracting a decent standard of player, which will mean that those sixth choice midfielders that can kind of do a job, there's no longer a fucking Luke Amos to punt out the door ahead of them. Do you know what I mean? It's like if we're going to improve, it's you that's going to go. And like when we talk about wanting Joe Newell to have to really fight for his place on the starting 11, then that's going to punt. So, do you know what I mean? Like, and that's healthy. It's good. Like, it's a good thing.
Yeah, because the thing for me, I was thinking about it today when I was out for a walk. Like, we're in a position where we don't need, like, the ideal position for Hibs is to consistently be signing like 4 or 5 players max across the summer because you've got a good enough squad from the year before.
Yeah.
But I think, as we said at the start of last season, we needed a massive outgoing of players. Like we wanted to, and I still think going into the summer there was still a good like 6-7 we probably wanted to see go. Most of them have left in some capacity now. And just before we move on to the players that we brought in, I know you mentioned Ekpiteta as a maybe. I don't think there's any players now off the top of my head, you will definitely correct me if I'm wrong, that we want to see go, but is there anyone that you would potentially expect to see moved on? The only one I would potentially mention, we had a bit of a chat about it in the our WhatsApp group, was just Molotnikov for me, not permanently, but just on loan. I wouldn't mind seeing him go to a championship team, get a full season of games under his belt. I think he'd play really well in that division, and I think the physicality of that league would be really good for kind of leveling them up and getting them ready for Premiership football. So for me, and then obviously Megwa, I don't think's out on loan yet, so probably finding a loan move out for both of those players.
I think it is the younger players. Yeah, I think it's that, and I'd probably put Murray Johnson into that bracket as well.
Anyone else we're missing, Craig?
No.
Cool. All right. Well, we'll do it in order.
You're always so smooth, Harry. Right. Okay. Cool.
Yeah, let's move this one on. We'll do it in order that the club announced it. And then he said to me, fuck HMFC, Rocky Bashiri, thankfully has extended for another 3 years, which is brilliant news. I've always been a massive fan of Rocky. As I said at the start of last season, I thought he was a very good squad player. And then he proved me wrong, and he's had a lot of doubters, not just at Hibs, but across the league. And I think going into the end of the season, he was one of the best defenders across the entire league. I thought he was brilliant last year. Looking at the difference from when he started playing compared to before he started playing was just monumental. Probably means that we're going to stick with a 3 at the back this season, I would think. But Craig, just how big a contract extension is Rocky?
That's brilliant. It's really good. And probably, as we said, sort of to the latter part of last season, it's bizarre sort of sitting here and going on about how big a player Rocky has become for us, because I certainly would not have said that at the start of last season, the season before that even. He's a player that's definitely massively improved. His defensive sort of nous and positioning and just sniffing out danger is just so much better now. And I think when you pair that with the raw attributes that he's got, the raw physical attributes that everybody knows everything about beforehand, before his defensive abilities were actually sort of coming along a wee bit. When you pair them together, obviously it makes him a very good player at our level. Still 25, so he'll still have in his mind maybe a year or two at Hibs and then get a move somewhere better, which obviously is a good thing for us as well, because we'll hopefully get a fee for him. So I think the continuity for our team, basically to the back 5, if you like, you're only really changing potentially the goalkeeper and your right wing back, and the rest is pretty much going to be the same, which I think is massive going into another season, because it just gives you that solid base to build from. So yeah, Rocky was the last piece of that puzzle, I think, and I'm delighted to see 3 years.
Craig, Ewan, keen to get your thoughts on Rocky, but on what Craig was saying there, just how good is it to actually have the solid foundation in place for the next few years?
That's it. That's exactly it. Like that's probably the number. I love Rocky, and I think he's got all the attributes to be a fantastic, or is a fantastic defender at this level, especially in a free. We've touched on that enough with his pace, but I think to build on what was a pretty good defence in the second half of last season, we can now roll out the exact same back five and goalkeeper as if we want to. So, you've not got any uncertainty there. Do you know what I mean? Like, say the goalkeeper comes in and maybe he doesn't hit the ground running, he doesn't look great. Well, Smith will go and play. Do you know what I mean? And we've seen that he's capable at this level, and we've debated for long enough what his qualities are and aren't, but he's capable, and sometimes that's all you need. And players like Rocky, Iredale, Miller, O'Hara, they've all sort of complemented each other really nicely over the last sort of 6 or 7 months, sort of from November, mid to late November onwards, and it's a fantastic piece of business, and I think it's a really interesting piece of business as well for both parties. Hibs have secured a player sort of coming into their peak age that's probably now had their 100 hours of coaching, or 10,000 hours of coaching, or whatever it was Lee Johnson said he needed. But Rocky also has the opportunity there that in 2 or 3 years' time, because I can't imagine Hibs would entertain offers for him next summer unless it was, mega money.
I don't know.
But at the end of this contract, he'll only be 28, I think. So he's still got the opportunity to maybe go and get that, like, big sort of. I'm purely thinking financial, because I would think that's maybe what would have potentially meant that we lost out this time round. So I think the 3-year deal works really well for everyone, and just genuinely delighted from that continuity standpoint, knowing that we can potentially, on the opening day of the season, or going away in Europe and just going, right, guys, go and do what you've done since November. We're comfortable with you. You know what you're doing. You understand each other. I think it's fantastic, mate. And I'll be honest, I think I thought it wasn't going to happen, probably. And I think I'd sort of consigned myself to that.
Yeah.
And it kind of came out of the blue a little bit, didn't it? It just sort of got dropped in sort of 24 hours, 36, 48 hours before it got announced. A couple of articles going, it's done, and delighted. Really, genuinely delighted. Really good news.
Can I just drop in a wee bit of balance and just say I think it's important to not expect the same level of consistency and performance all the time from Rocky, because he was at a really, really high level in that second half of last season. And I think especially he's still young, and I don't think you'll see that throughout the entire 3 years of his contract, or whatever, however long he's still going to be at Hibs. I don't think you'll see that level of performance all the time. There's definitely still doubts over some parts of his game. I still have massive fear about when the ball goes over his head. I'm still not convinced that he reads it too well when he has to turn. But I just think it's important to not put too much expectation on one player's shoulder and say, well, just because we've got him now, that's it. We're sorted. We're going to be unreal next season. It's definitely a brilliant piece of business, though.
I find that it's the wider piece, Craig, isn't it? Where you say we've got Iredale tied down, we've got Rocky tied down, we've got Nicky Cadden tied down, we've got Chris Cadden tied down, we've got Josh Mulligan, obviously, now that we'll come on to talk about. We've got Smith for another 2 years. We've got Salinger on a 4-year deal. Now, there's no guarantee, like you say, that players will either continue to perform at that level or that they will meet the expectations. But there's also Rocky's still at a good age, Adele's at a good age. Lewis Miller and Obita are the players that have got a year left on their contract, but Obita is probably approaching the latter years of his career, whereas Nicky Cadden's got a couple years on him. Chris Cadden, this contract will take him into his 30s, but Mulligan's in his young 20s. You can start to see in that sort of back line the sort of progression there, where maybe next summer you are going, right, okay, do we want to tie Obita down again, or do we let him go? I think Miller will probably go next summer if he doesn't go this summer. If we get an offer, I think he'll see himself as making a move. But what tying these players down, and you know what they do, it means that you're not looking at wholesale changes. And I just think continuity is so big, especially at defence.
It'd be interesting, actually, just something you said there. Maybe at some point in a future episode we could look at it, like the squad makeup. Maybe once this transfer window's shut and we'd know our squad's guaranteed, to compare or look at the sort of average age of our squad, because I know we went through a spell a few years ago where it was really high and we were an aging squad, and then we had a couple of years, sort of maybe like 22, 23, that it was far too young, and we had so many youngsters on the books. With these sort of experimental signings that we were doing. It'll be interesting to see now how that compares, because I feel like just while you were reading through it, it feels like there's quite a few like sort of 27, 28, that type of.
So you've got range. Miller at 24, Ekpateta at 29, O'Hara at 26, Cadden 28, obviously both Caddens, Jack Iredale's 29, Obita 31, and Rocky at 25. So there is that sort of nice blend in there.
You're in sort of the middle range, which is good.
I find the only thing, if I was to be uber, is that you'd love Iredale to be the younger of the two out of like him and Ekpateta. Do you know what I mean? Like, but I mean, you're really in the weeds at that point.
Yeah.
To go back to your original point, Larry, and I do want your thoughts on it as well, of course, but I just think that's like well, you said it yourself in the group chat the other day. You were worried that if Rocky doesn't sign, then we need to get that player that has that pace and has that ability and that stature. It's like just putting the final piece in the jigsaw again and going, and we can, let's say, just go to the guys, right, go again. We know what we know what you can do. Go do it.
Yeah, because the thing is, for me with Rocky, like at the start of last season, I said I was more than happy for him to be at the club as the backup role. So if we do get injuries, I was completely comfortable with him coming in. And that's probably the way that I'd view Ekpateta. Like, I know there's a player in Ekpateta, but if he was to be our starting centre back this season, I probably wouldn't be like as comfortable with him starting the season in that role.
Sorry, I'm loving that. I said I wish Iredale was the younger of him and Ekpateta, and they're the same age.
Well done, Ewan. But the only thing I'd say on Craig's point, I get not wanting to put too much pressure on Rocky, but the reason I'm excited for him to sign is because I want that level of consistency. I think that he's earned us putting a bit of pressure on him. I think he was brilliant in the second half of last season, and I think that it's like he took on a role of leadership as well. When the team was down, he kind of helped. In my opinion, it looked like his tenacity helped get the team kind of back up for it. So, not saying you were wrong, but and I get where you're coming from. But for me, I think that he should be having that pressure on him because I just think he's good enough to have it now.
I hope that's the way he views it. To be fair,
yeah,
like genuinely, the best thing is if he views himself in that way and kind of grows into that. Not to quote Lee Johnson, leadership role. And I think that'll be just a good thing for us.
And then you did kind of kill my vibe a bit because I like to be dramatic when we're on this show, and I was going to give the floor to Craig to dramatically reveal our next signing, but you did name drop him about 4 times. So Craig, without any form of fun acknowledgement, I'm only kidding you. Talk to us.
I'm sure everyone that's listening to this has not seen that Hibs have signed a football player. I'm sure
it doesn't mean I don't like to be dramatic. Anyway, it's always fun, Craig, when we do transfer window episodes and people actually sign the players that we're asking for. You named him a couple of times before the window started and recently as well. Talk to us about your man, Josh Mulligan.
Delighted. That was one of these signings that everybody was buzzing for when it was kind of getting rumoured, and obviously big Fabrizio Romano dropping Hibs in. It was wild. It's in a way, I was actually talking to Harry about it. I kind of don't like it when they ruin it and you know everything about a transfer before it happens. But at that point in time, I couldn't have cared less because it was just right. We're going to get Josh Mulligan, so that's all I was really thinking about. So no, delighted. I think he definitely suits the league. He's got bags of power in his run. As Liam would like to say, athleticism. He's definitely right up there. So happy. And one of the things that I noted as well is he 22?
Yeah,
or 23. Very young, and he's had a lot of games, which is massive as well. So maybe actually goes back to Harry's point about Rudy, getting Rudy out and trying to get him to that sort of level of games by the time he gets the same age. And I think that's one of these things that definitely helps a player, and it's a worthwhile investment in a player early on to put him out to get him games at sort of senior level.
Mm-hmm. Not to not talk about Mulligan, but just to make your point there about Rudy, I think Rudy's too good to be playing League One, League Two. I think I'd only want to be loaning him out if he was going to play, and if he was going to like a Championship team to start most weeks, or even a Premiership team to be involved in their squads more often than ours. You know, I just
Has
don't.
he had any loans yet?
He went very briefly to Stirling Albion, I think, at the end of the season before last.
Quite often you see the sort of the idea with a lot of the young players when they send them out on loan, and Josh Mulligan's a perfect example because he's played. I looked at his transfer market, reliable as ever. He's played a lot of games at League Two, League One, Championship, and then he played in the Premiership. Yeah. So it's like send them out to League Two, then do them to League One the next season, then Championship, and build them up if they're good enough. They'll show it.
Yeah, he went on loan to Stirling Albion. Anyway, Rudy's still a Hibs player, has been for a while. Josh Mulligan, I think it's a great signing, Harry, for almost exactly what we were talking about when we were talking about the Rocky contract extension. But we seen him play at right wing back and centre midfield when we pumped him 4-0 at Easter Road. Now, I don't think anyone's going to be fantastic if your team's getting beat 4-0, but I think
it wasn't a bad 4-0. It wasn't a bad
to that point, I think I'd been a little bit cooler on Mulligan than maybe Craig and others. You know, like we'd had Mulligan sort of sent into us on a handful of episodes when we talked about, you know, areas that we need to strengthen and stuff. But when I seen him at Eastern Road in, what would that have been, April, March, April, I thought it was really, really good actually in the game. And it was at 4-0. It was late in the game. The game was sort of dying out, but he got the ball really deep, sort of not too sort of down in that pocket that he stand where I sit, and he drove right through the sort of heart of the midfield and really far. And I was like, you know, that's everything that I love in like a sort of central midfielder where they can travel with the ball, like not comparing them at all, but you know, like how John McGinn used to just get the ball.
I knew that's what you were going to say.
Because
I was thinking the exact same thing.
We've probably not had someone that's comfortable in a more central position, really dry. Even to be fair, in a wide position, you know, Boyle's more of a sort of final third threat. Chris Cadden and Nicky Cadden are maybe deeper, you know, like I think just having someone that can carry the ball, and when you see the clips of him, like the goal that he assisted Bowie for the Scotland under-21s, he gets it at that sort of like 30-35 yard distance, and you know, just really comfortable on the ball, driving to the byline and cutting it across. I think it's a really, really interesting signing as well. It'd be good. I don't think he'll be our starting right wing back. I don't. I still think Chris Cadden will have that position, if I'm being totally honest. However, I think he will play. I think he will play in every game he's available, be that starting or off the bench, because of that flexibility as much as anything, in the energy and the drive. And again, to go back to the Mariah Welsh comment, one in the door, one out the door. I think we've got the, you know, if you're doing if you're looking at that 1-for-1, I think we've got the better end of the deal here, and a really exciting player. And you know, I know you spoke about the home kit last week, but when I first seen the leak, I thought that was absolute shite. But see, the more and more I see it, and the more I see it in long sleeve, especially, I'm like, oh, that's actually
that looks good on him.
That's it. So you start to see like. Look, all these reveals and stuff are great, you know, but see when you just sort of, and I know that football's still edited like fuck, but you sort of see it just in like daylight. Do you know what I mean? Just like, and I think it's looking better and better. Really excited though, Harry, by Josh Mulligan. It feels like a signing that just makes sense. Do you know, like Jamie McGrath makes sense? Like Mulligan's played loads of games in this league, done well. Jamie McGrath's proven himself for 5-6 years. Sensible Hibs. We were sensible in COVID. We finished third. We were pretty sensible last year once we got our shit together. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, no, but we kind of went to a more
sensible in hindsight.
Robust. Well, went to a more robust player than what we had maybe at the start, and it just it's good. It's good shit.
It's good. Because he's young, he's Scottish, he's the exact type of mould that you want to be targeting to pick up from other teams in the league. It's not always possible because they quite often go to the Old Firm, and it's obviously very difficult to get them away from the Old Firm. I was just laughing. I just seen a tweet earlier. I think it was JD Hibs, and he was like, Bill Foley's playing, or everybody else playing chess, and Bill Foley's playing checkers, or whatever it was, because he was like, said they gave Rangers Max Aarons, so they didn't need Josh Mulligan, so we could get Josh Mulligan. That was good.
I just want to make some comparisons here, right? If you all indulge me. John McGinn signed for Hibs, aged 21. Josh Mulligan signs for Hibs, aged 22. John McGinn had made 87 appearances for St Mirren. Josh Mulligan's made 96 appearances for Dundee. Both of them have had spells at right wing back. Both of them are comfortable on the ball. Both of them are energetic. Both of them can drive for midfield. Both of them have JM as their initials. All I'm saying is we're going to be begging Josh Mulligan to get a £50 million move, and he's going to end up captaining Aston Villa in the Champions League, and we're never going to see another penny in 10 years.
I'm glad you started on the second half of that rant, because the first two things weren't the same, mate.
No, but similar profile. They played lower league football with St Mirren and with Dundee. Yeah. Similar age profile, mate. It's very, very similar profile of player.
I'm not sure if you'll get this, but Craig, do you know? I think he looks a bit like Darren Till.
He does a bit. He does.
Every time I see his face. Aye, yeah. If he's no UFC, he's retired now from UFC, but I think he looks like Darren Till, which means that he's hard as fuck. So
is this how Liam feels when I start talking about American football?
Probably,
yeah. Harry, can I just ask you a question, mate? Because I'm interested to hear what you think about it. I've seen Dundee fans sort of in a wee bit of debate with Hibs fans about what his best position was, and Dundee fans seem to think most of them, I would say, the consensus is that he's better as a central midfielder, whereas I definitely had him in my mind as more of a right wing back that can play in central midfield. What do you
think? It's tricky because I know, like, Dundee fans kind of put him in a bubble with Lyle Cameron and Silla, wasn't it? That was kind of like their main midfield three for the second half of the season. But I think that it's good that we've got that flexibility with Cadden and Miller kind of holding down the right wing back position. I know Miller kind of went to right centre back towards the end of the season, but I still think that it's kind of Cadden and Miller. So personally, I think he'll fill more in the midfield. I think that's where Gray will see him. I think you just done this as an opportunity for me to say midfield in a weird way. But
can I just come in on that as well? Sorry.
Yeah, and
this might sound really stupid. I think they've got. I think right wing back in a not pigeonholed number 6 or number 10, like a more traditional central midfielder, have quite a lot of similarities in requirement of attributes, because they do need to be effective in both halves of the pitch. They do need to have the engine to go, up and down. In midfields that generally are frees now, I don't think more often than not, you would think Mulligan would be one of the two wider midfielders, and then you'd have a 6 behind them, be that Triantas or Levitt or whatever. Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't actually think being a right wing back in terms of the attributes that you need to be effective in that position is that much.
Do you know a perfect example? You know the
Chris Cadden played central midfield for Motherwell for a period of time. Do you know what I mean? Like, I think there's quite a lot of players that have done.
You're doing that thing where I've had about 3 points I was going to make, and you just made one of them, and now I'm annoyed because I was going to be like, there was one thing, the still game meme where they're like, that's all right, actually. One time I see a Hibs fan put, why don't we try Chris Cadden in midfield? Like, this was like 3 years ago when we were shite. And I was like, that's a good idea. I didn't.
That's because you can trust Chris Cadden.
Aye, but that's the same with Mulligan. That's what I'm saying. Like, I think they're two similar players. I think that, I think we've got a gem. I think David Gray, I just fully trust him to do. And the thing is that I think as well, I think every player that we have that's available from last season that started, I think Gray sees as a starter this year until he sees something different in training, until he sees something different in football. Because from what we've seen of Gray as a manager, he seems to have the starting 11, you earn your place and you keep your place, or obviously if there's going to be tactical changes. And I really like that and respect that. So for me, Josh Mulligan, as Ewan said, I think when he's available, he'll play. But I think if he wants to start, he's going to have to prove at Hibs why he should be a starter at the club.
Shockingly sensible, that, Harry. It's far too sensible.
I think we've brought in 3 players, like new players. That is 3, isn't it? McGrath, Salinger, and Mulligan. That they are more than capable of playing week in, week out, but they also elevate the standard of the squad. Just like, I know not to get all like looking back and stuff. Luke Amos played football for Hibs last season. Do you know what I mean? and now we're going, we can kind of get rid of Mariah Welsh. Do you
How
know what I
many
mean?
times?
It must have been 5 at least. Genuinely, he must have come off the bench on multiple occasions. But you're now like the standard of the squad is lifting, where you think Jamie McGrath comes in, then maybe Josh Campbell's not going to be featuring as much, but we know that he's more than capable of performing at this level. Like the squad, the level of the squad.
Did they
this
say
summer
Josh
is...
Campbell? You and speak to me about it. The Campbell scale.
Yes, the world-renowned measure of athleticism, the Campbell scale. If anyone from my work is watching, this wasn't me that made this afternoon. It was I fought long and hard over this. It took me about 10-15 minutes to put together. It is the peak of tracking male performance, really.
Can I just say, I really enjoy the fact that Campbell's got the captain's armband on purely for the Campbell
it's a Campbell
That's the only
mate.
reason he's got. That's very good.
And he's
very
pointing
good.
down at the fannies. Martin Boyle's going, I'm the fittest. And look, maybe I felt a little bit harsh putting Dylan Levitt at the bottom there. I was just trying to think of prominent players where maybe in our discussions previous in months and years gone by that have lacked athleticism. So what I am interested to know from the pair of you is, where will Josh Mulligan rank in the Campbell scale? Now, for audio listeners, get yourself on YouTube, get yourself on Twitter, you'll see the scale. So we've got Dylan Levitt at the bottom of the Campbell scale, we've got Martin Boyle second, Chris Cadden third, and Josh Campbell fourth. Where do you think Josh Mulligan will rank on the Campbell scale of athleticism? TM.
Craig, I'll let you go first, mate.
I was just actually trying to think of the other players in the squad that should be included. Is it not a bit harsh on Miller? I feel like
Craig,
when you take everything into it,
it's a small
sample size
piece of work that I didn't have much time on. Did you want me to put the full squad in it? Because then their little pictures would be teeny.
That would have been better, to be honest.
You know, it's a visual product.
But I'll work with what I've got.
Joe Newell came to mind as well.
It's difficult actually to pinpoint whether he'd be definitely ahead of Boyle. Would he be ahead of Cadden? I'd like to see it. What was the test that they done the other day? They put up on Twitter, and it was Josh Campbell and Cadden that were
like something like that.
But it was like maybe it was a 1,000 meter. Who can run that the fastest, basically? And obviously Josh Campbell won it, but it wasn't by much. It was not.
Where is
by
everyone
much at all.
seeing this?
It was on Twitter, mate. They put it up the other day.
We put it in the group chat because Liam was creaming himself.
Is it the one? Is it the one where like they all fail at the end?
I've
seen.
Because I'm sure I heard the boy that was one of the coaches saying 2 minutes 59, and he was like counting up. So I don't know if he's done a 1K in 2:59 or 2:58 or something. Campbell.
Gotcha.
And Cadden was maybe a second or something behind. So I don't know that there's too much to split the pair of them. The difference I would say is in a game, I think Campbell's lasting a wee bit longer and holds a wee bit more power and athleticism towards the end of the game. From what I've seen of Mulligan, he's right up there, because I quite often refer to him as the Dundee Josh Campbell. Not only in looks, but in sort of play style and in athleticism, I think he's very similar to Josh Campbell. Hopefully, he's better ability-wise. That's not a dig at Josh Campbell, by the way. That's just hopefully he's a worldie. So I'm going to say he's just going to go just ahead of Cadden at the moment.
I'd also like to factor in, Harry, that you've got to think about the Campbell scale as also a level of athleticism whilst also looking fucked all the time. Because 5 minutes into every game, Josh Campbell does look knackered.
That's because he gets hit more than any other player I've ever seen. But what I'm going to do, and we're going to get Liam to review this next time he's on, or maybe just in the group chat if he can't be asked.
Well, you know he's going to have Chris Cadden ahead of him, that's for sure.
No. We've got the athleticism scale here, essentially. The Campbell scale is all about athleticism. What if we were to do 5 drills that these players had to go through? So obviously the 1,000 meter or the 1K, as some people would say, is one of them. What's the 4 other drills to determine the athleticism for this scale that people should be considering?
It can't just be how well you last in a run or whatever.
No, because listen,
dynamic
athleticism
running.
for me, and something that I think Campbell does really well, is I think you need to put 5 decent crosses into the box, and whoever deals with them either heading them away or heading them at goal. I think that should be one of the drills. So we've got the heading drill, we've got the 1K. What 3 other drills are you wanting to put in for when we judge athleticism?
Yeah, I think a standing vertical jump, 100%. That's got to be in there.
I think it's got to be a sprint like a 40 or 50 meter sprint, a short distance sprint.
I think on the short sprint, you've got to have them changing direction a couple of times, and that
Make it more
for
football sort of dynamic
Aye.
based.
Yep. And if I'm honest, I do think like a 5k, because that's going to give you more indication to their. I mean, footballers are covering comfortably more than that in a 90-minute game.
I think we should do a
So
10k. Up it
maybe a
from a 5
10k.
to a 10, because I think a 5's too easy to
Aye.
just sprint at the start and just hang on. So I think a 10k would be a better measure of that.
I also think you should do you should have everybody at the
Obviously,
club in a
I'm the
square,
person, Harry.
then-
Sorry, obviously, I'm the person who's in peak physical health here. So I'm absolutely more than qualified to talk about this, of course.
and you're
So
obviously more qualified to interrupt me, Ewan, so that's
I
wonderful.
change the habit of a lifetime.
But I was thinking you should have every player in the squad, and then you should have like special shoulder pads on, and how well you deal with a shoulder barge, but also
Harry's turned this into the fucking NFL Combine.
well you deal with getting up again. Because the thing is with Josh Campbell that makes me think is the durability. Like, he does get hit a lot and shoved over a lot, but he does get up and get on with it, and I think that's part of his athleticism.
Maybe it's scoring a goal at the end of a 1k. Like, who's no got jelly legs?
Who can still kick a ball properly and dive in between some cones?
Are you athletic if you get spun 5 times on the spot and then still score? Is that a sign of athleticism?
We definitely do need Liam's judgment on this, because I feel like he's sitting tutting away at the screen right now when he's watching this.
Yeah, in hindsight, I think, Liam, sorry we disgusted you. But in answer to your original question, Ewan, I would put I'm on a par with Campbell, and he has to earn his way up. I don't want to put him in the top upper echelon.
Harsh on Cadden.
Did you? No, you just said on a par with Campbell.
No, I said Cadden.
Oh, I thought.
I know you said Campbell. I think you said Campbell.
Oh, so I meant Cadden. Anyway.
That's fair. That's all right then.
Cool. All right. Well, that was a segment I didn't expect to go as mental as that. But lads, I want to. There's an obvious player that we've been linked with, which is Nectar Triantis. Not finalised. I'm saying this after I spoke about Tavares, because I thought it was a very reputable source. I didn't realise it was just a random journalist from Portugal. But I'd rather just keep to things that have actually officially happened, because obviously we're all hoping and praying that we get Triantis, but we can wax lyrical about him when hopefully he does permanently become a Hibs player. One thing we've got to mention with Rocky Bashiri, the away kit. I've actually deleted it from my thing downstairs, so I can't bring it back. But what was your initial thoughts? I think most people, when they first saw it, weren't too impressed, but it is kind of growing on me a bit.
I thought the reaction at first was a bit over the top, to be honest. Obviously, everybody was buzzing about Rocky, and the kit was secondary, to be fair. I love a yellow kit. I have very fond memories of a yellow kit. I
do think the sleeve thing is a bit weird, I can't lie.
It's just cut off. It's not. It looked at
like
first like it was a bit hanging off. But it's just there's just a wee notch in it. I think in person that's not anything major at all. I like it. It's not by any means my favourite all time or kit or anything like that. But there's nothing offensive about it at all.
Much like a lot of things in my life, Harry, it's a grower, I think.
It's too vivid.
I'll be honest.
Yellow cards.
No, much like the home kit. I love a yellow Hibs kit as well, like Craig. But I think much like the home kit on the Rocky video, I was a bit, that looks a bit shite. Mainly the sleeves. The sleeve looked like a fucking envelope flap, like it did. But then seeing just pictures of it, I just wish they'd done the round collar, the same as the home kit. I think other than that, I think I'd have been buzzing with it. I love the socks; are really nice. The yellow with the green trim. That's and the sort of bottle green shorts. I think it was one of the guys on the Ramble posted it with all the yellow kits that we'd had. I was shocked at how little there was. I feel like in my head, Hibs have had a load of yellow kits, and then I look at them and go, "God, is that it?" But
we probably wore the one, the one that had Sunshine on Leaf lyrics written on it.
We wore it at St Johnstone. I was there on my lonesome. It was freezing cold, and we scored 2 late goals to win. Nisbet and Murphy scored Scott Allen masterclass.
Yeah, I was at that. I obviously didn't know you at that point, but
we were mere acquaintances at that point, as opposed to YNs, Craig. That's what it was.
That was a good game.
Hi.
I was just wanting to let the awkward silence stew after Ewan just said that. To be honest,
I
that
didn't
was
even know
shocking.
I didn't even know what that was, to be honest.
Mate,
That-
are you two, mate? Did you not have MSN?
yeah,
Did you not have MSN when you were kids?
probably.
Here, Craig, you're
very
slagging off Liam for being old. That's a
Mate,
shocker.
you had a year. You said like 1 or 2 years younger than me. Surely you had MSN, and you could put people like in your status. And then like you would put their name and then in brackets YN.
I think
and like
it
would
dropped
put that
just
little like
before.
emoji like thing. And what I discovered in work this week, whilst working hard and amongst putting together the intricacies of the Campbell scale, is that if you still put that on Microsoft Teams, it still comes up with a little emoji with a wee face doing that. There you go.
Well, sorry, I kind of bumped you on that one there, but
It basically means
genuinely
we
just didn't know
bezies,
what you
mate.
meant.
We best pals. That's what
nice,
that means.
that's nice.
Right, well, that's very kind.
Did you not?
And we're
Yous are
we're not
young.
going to end it on that note because that's too nice for me. If you guys were young now, and you kind of how you get all the like the wee nobody wants to use their own face on Twitter now, so they'll make like a Rocky season, etc.
Oh yeah.
If you were like 13 or whatever and you were making your first Twitter account, what Hibs player do you reckon? It has to be within like the last 3 seasons, say. Who do you reckon you would make yours on? I reckon I would have done mine on Ellie Yuan.
Don't know, but I'd probably be calling me ugly like every time I've the audacity to tweet about Hearts at every single one of their face list accounts seem to come back and say, which is of course the peak of irony as you hide behind a picture of someone else. My one would be for the cut. It's Joe Neal, mate. Look at him. It's fucking Joe Neal. If I'm pretending to be someone I'm not, is that handsome cunt?
Fair. Craig, are you even going to answer that question?
Nah, I was also going to say Joe Neal.
Oh, I'll change mine then. I'll go for Martin Boyle.
Nice. All right, it's a go for Joe. We got Boyle. I can't think of a Boyle pun, and I was going to do like Yuan's naps, and then the profile pic was going to be Yuan.
I think there's a real gap in the market for someone to make a fake Martin Boyle account, like what do you call them, a parody, and just tweet like stupid stuff, and a lot of people would believe it because of like the persona that even Hibs have sort of pushed throughout the years. I think you would have a quota of people that would buy into that, and and there's a good chance that like it would be running the daily record before someone went, that's not Martin Boyle's account.
The wee Duncan McLean, you heard it here first. So that's a message from you into the young team. Get on it.
Aye, and I'll probably fall victim of it as I'm like, fucking, is that MSN?
Well, now that Ewan's accidentally getting people to dox Martin Boyle, I'm joking. That feels like a much worse note to end it on, so that's where we will end it, guys. But thanks so much for listening to our nonsense as usual. Ewan, great to have you back, Craig. You'll do. We'll catch you all next time. Goodbye.
Cheers.